So I've had some people in my network request for me to do a video that shows the difference in dodging and burning techniques. So I've pre-done a few of them just to show you the different effects, and which I think is probably the better out of all of them. So the first one is just my curves adjustment, burn and dodge layer that are in my retouch set, and I'm just going to turn it on and turn it off, and here you can see that you have all the control to do this manually. I guess it's a lot like shooting a camera in manual versus in some kind of preset or on program or automatic. So this is the actual, and this is just using dodging and burning. I'm gonna zoom into her face really quick here, and just, you can see I've done no retouching. I've only done dodging and burning. So you can see that you can really affect the skin before you even do any retouching to the skin this way. And I'll zoom out. Okay, turn that off. You can see how flat this light is. The next one I did blend if. So, I mean, I like blend if typically after I've done all my retouching as well as my dodging and burning. So I don't use this technique as a stand-alone type of a technique. And I'm just going to go ahead and delete this group, and I'm going to do it for you and show you what blend if does for dodging and burning. I will come back and show you this technique again after I do the retouch on this image so that you can see how much better it works once the retouching is done. So I'm just going to duplicate my background layer. I'm going to change the blend mode to multiply. I'm going to double click on the layer itself, and now down here in blend if you want to just affect the shadows, you have to choose the underlying layer. So what we're doing is we're revealing the underlying layer, and that's the reason why we're using the lower slider, because this layer is already got the multiply blend mode attached to it. So we're trying to reveal the layer beneath. So if I pull the highlights to the left, you're going to see here that it's going to reduce the shadows in the highlights and leave the shadows where we want them to be. So this is a great way to use this. If you want to split it and make it softer around the edges, just hold down your Alt or Option key, and then you can separate these two, and in doing this you can see how it feathers it out a little bit better. And just move this point to wherever it is that you like the effect. So I'm just going to leave it here, click OK. And then I'm going to go back to my background layer. I'm going to duplicate that layer. This time I'm going to change the I'm going to turn off my multiply layer. I'm going to change the blend mode to screen. Now you can use overlay. You can use soft light, hard light, vivid light. You can even use color dodge if you want, but I typically just use screen. Double tap the layer again. This time you're going to come to the dark side, and you're going to just pull this over until the highlights start to disappear. So same technique as before. Hold down your Alt or Option key, pull those 2 points apart, and then that way you can feather it out. It just depends on how much you want the highlights to show. So right about there is good. Click OK. And then what you have to do, turn on your multiply layer. What you're going to do is choose both of these layers, Command G to group them, and then you have to add a layer mask. That's how this works. Now you're going to come up to Image, Apply Image, and I leave it on the default settings of multiply and click OK. So you can see that this really emphasizes skin texture and blemishes and things like that, which is not good for a raw image, but will be great once you've done all your retouching. So that's before and that's after, and you can just reduce to suit. So you can see how, had this been an image that was already retouched, it would probably have a nice overall effect. And so the next one that I'm going to show you is my Lumenzia. And this is the Lumenzia plugin that I've done a demo on before. I'll put a link to the video that I did on that before, and I'm just going to turn it on. So this isn't too bad, and basically it's a whole bunch of curves adjustments using luminosity masks like this, but you have to tweak it. It's not good straight out of the box. I'm just going to delete that and I'm going to run it and show you. So duplicate that layer, click on my Lumenzia, hold down my shift key and choose curves. This luminosity also uses blend if as well, which is kind of nice. So starting with the very top one, these are the really high highlights. So if you pull that curves adjustment up, it's going to brighten up the higher highlights. I'm going to come down to the dark. If we pull it down a little bit, it's going to deepen those shadows. And then you can slowly just work your way up and decide if you want darker or lighter for each individual curves adjustment. I usually work my way up. I don't want to create a flat image because in my opinion this one's already pretty flat, so I'm just adding a little bit of tweaking to it. Okay, so before and after, so that's using Lumenzia. Again, this one is so much better once you've done all of your retouching. So bottom line for me is do all your retouching first before you decide to do your dodging and burning, unless, like in this one here, you're using your dodging and burning to actually get rid of shadows and blemishes and tone issues in your image. Okay, so I'll do the retouch on this now, and then we'll revisit these 3 dodging and burning techniques again afterwards. Okay, so now that the basic retouching is complete on this image, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to those other dodging and burning techniques and see if it does anything for this image. So I feel like the highlights in this is still a little too bright for my taste. So we're going to start with Lumenzia and we're going to go ahead and run our curves adjustment layers. Now the nice thing with this plugin is that it gives you super precise ability to affect basic pixels. So for instance, the top one is for the overall brightest highlights. So we're going to pull this down now instead of like before we pulled it up like this. So we're gonna actually just pull this down a bit. I'm gonna come down into the shadow area and pull it down too because I don't want it to be too terribly flat. So this one as well, I'm just pulling this one down. And the reason for this is because the face and the hair, in my opinion, was just way too bright. So I'm going to go to the very bottom now and I'm going to come in about mid-tone area and pull the darks down. That's good. And then the second darkest, same thing, about mid-tones, and just pull it down. So now we can see that we've really affected specifically the highlights and the shadows in a way that we had more control over. So if I close all of the zone curves and I show you the before, you can see that some of the brighter areas were just too bright. So I really like how this has come in and really finished and tweaked the dodging and burning to make it look way more realistic. So I'm just going to turn that off and we're going to come in now and we're going to try our blend if. So duplicate the background layer, change the blend mode to multiply, double click on the layer, and remember we're going to the highlights because we're going to minimize the shadows. So we'll start bringing back those highlight areas and hold Option or Alt, split those two, and now we can see the areas that we are affecting. So I don't actually want too much of this effect. I just want subtle like this. Click OK. Go back to our background layer, duplicate that layer, change the blend mode to screen. Same thing, now we're going to turn off the multiply layer, double click on it. This time the underlying layer, we're trying to reveal just the highlights. So this one will have to go a little bit further to get the highlights. Hold that Option Alt key and then hold that down and now we can split it. So if you reduce this one, it'll make the shadows a little darker. Sorry, the highlights a little brighter. So it just depends on what you want for this image. So I'm probably going to leave it something like that. Click OK. And now we're going to turn on the first layer again. Choose both of them. Command G for group, add a layer mask, come up to image, apply image, leave it at all the defaults. I'm just going to reduce the overall effect now. So like I said before, do your curves adjustment, dodge and burn, or your dodge and burn tools that you use in Photoshop first, and then come in, do your blend if or your Lumenzia, whichever you prefer. But now you can see that this has really emphasized the highlights and the shadows in a super lovely way. So there's this one, which I really like actually, and then there is our zone curves, and you could actually apply both. So turn off the lower one. So I guess my final opinion on this is to do all three if you can, if you actually have the plugin Lumenzia. I like how you have precise control with Lumenzia and the luminosity masks. I love how the blend if really makes those highlights pops and deepens the shadows. I love how all three together can create this effect. I'm going to reduce the blend if just a little bit so that those highlights aren't too distracting. I'm at about 29%, but yeah, this is definitely the way to go. So that's my final opinion on this. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'll finish this edit and post it, but until the next video, I'll see you guys next time.